Hi listeners, Joanna here from Mindful Counseling, also known as GDS Counseling. You can find me on YouTube where I do recorded webinars with one of my colleagues focusing on mental health and other related issues. And now today I thought it would be a good way to just bring up some of our thoughts, feelings, frustrations, daily routines, struggles, schedules. I noticed a few days ago as I was driving, I see this man in a car. And it was if I recall, yellow Jeep Wrangler. Not that it matters, but just for the story that I experienced and thought of. And windows are down. It's one of those cars that you can take the hood off, because it's a nice weather, and it's been nice in the recent few days, weeks maybe, lightly said. And he's in the front seat with what looked like his son, maybe teenage boy. And as I turn, because I was standing on a red light, and as I turn to go a certain way, I just see this man brushing his hands all over his face, almost like you could tell how exhausted he was, just putting his hands on his face, brushing his face like he's trying to make sure that he's awake. Now, it was not late. The hour was, give or take, around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, give or take. So we're talking about after work hours. Maybe he may have also picked up his child from school. Some kids are in school since the pandemic. So, and I thought to myself of how exhausted was he and how busy or not his day may have been. And I thought to myself how all of us are kind of like this nowadays. I'm sure we've been like this even before COVID. So even when I'm talking about this story, it relates before COVID, during COVID, and here where we are today, that we don't acknowledge sometimes our feelings of being exhausted. We might acknowledge it in a moment and maybe still continue on, but the part of us and how much do we struggle sometimes to shift in between our schedules, our work schedules, our routines, activities, especially even with kids there, particular age where you still have to drive them. So once again, as I'm thinking of this man looking just so tired, I have all these feelings come up in me, and I'm thinking of all of us working. And even if we're not working, those of us who may have lost jobs but are still trying to be busy or need to be busy for other reasons, whether it's taking care of loved ones or those that need to be taken care of, hence why they're not working, even though that's still considered work, right? There's such a stigma about it too. Maybe a different topic, but focusing on this moment of how we pull through sometimes of all of our schedules, our exhaustions, our responsibilities. And then I kind of go back many years and I'm talking about 40, 50 years ago, 60 years ago. And I'm thinking of the activities, busyness, and schedules and things that our parents used to do, our grandparents, and what the schedules looked like then, whether it is having more than one or two kids, having one job, maybe some working in the field, but the instant gratifications were not there. What I mean by that is kids had things to do outside. There were not necessarily activities or sporting sort of activities where you need to pay for. A lot of children and I could think of myself when I was a kid, just being outside, not worrying about what I need to watch. Not that we had a lot of channels back then. I think if I could recall, I believe we had 1 or 2 channels on a television. So, and that was it, or a radio. There was no phones. There was landlines. And not even think landlines had messages. If I recall, we had to write messages down on a paper. So I'm kind of saying this as a sense of being exhausted. We're so tired today because we drive from so many different locations, whether it's dropping out kids off at school to then going to work, to then picking them up from school, dropping them off in particular events, soccers and softballs, whatever it may be, and then going home, cooking dinners, cleaning the house, whatever it may be. And our day is over. It just passes. And that's another thing that we don't recognize is we don't even pay attention to how quickly our days pass because we are just running. We're running crazy from responsibilities, activities, and the days just fly. That's why we always say the older we get, at least that's what I heard all the time growing up, the older we get, the faster days go. And whether it is because we do have responsibilities, and I want to say we probably pile up even more responsibilities onto this plate. So going back to this man, is the exhaustion that he had on his face. Like I said, I think it was his son in the passenger seat. And they may have either been driving home, they may have been going to an activity or somewhere for him or for the son or someone else. So this part of just looking at that exhaustion and how he was pulling through to make sure that he continues to drive. He brushed his face. His eyes needed to be wide open, not shut. So I knew that the way he was stroking his face was to wake up. I think we've all done that. This part of us acknowledging, oh my God, we are so exhausted and what can I do to pull through, to move forward, and slowing down, and how important self-care is. And do we need to do all the running around? And as a matter of fact, actually, that day when I saw this man, I was actually driving back from dropping off my daughter at gymnastics. So here I am acknowledging his tiredness, but at the same time, questioning whether or not I was tired. So this part of who you are, where you are, and what you are doing. And that most of us are really pulling through, pushing through the responsibilities, daily struggles, whether it is drinking a cup of coffee or 5. I hear those stories of some of us drinking more than 1 or 2 or 3 cups of coffee just so we can pull through. And that's another story. I find that so extremely blows my mind because of how much we rely on these things to keep awake, which therefore suggests to us of how tired we are. So this part of us, just to be able to acknowledge that we are tired. We are human beings, and at the end of the day, the world will not end if I don't drive, my daughter to gymnastics today. She might miss it, but the world will not end. Now, of course, we could say it depends on the age, right? If they're 7 or if they're 15 and whether they're competing, there's another story to it. But I think the message that I'm trying to send to all of you today is just to acknowledge when you are listening to this podcast, whether it's during the morning hours or at night hours when you're about to fall into your bed routine and falling asleep, or to motivate yourself a little bit more if it's in the morning hours. I just want you to be able to acknowledge what you're feeling right at this moment. Are you listening to this as a way to relax? Can you check in with yourself whether or not you are tired? And what if you're tired? What is your next thing to do? What can you do to take care of your body and yourself in a healthy way? Do you have something to do after this podcast, after listening to this, that you need to do? And how tired are you? So I'll give you all maybe a lesson in here is if you are to be busy or run around like animals, because that's another side of us. We do run like animals. most of us, when we have so many different things to do, is just take a breather. And what I mean by taking a breather, after listening to this, take just 1 minute. And 1 minute does not take a long time. A lot of us will always say we have no time, but we do. That 1 minute can change 60 seconds of your time where you can sit back, close your eyes, and breathe. All you have to do is just to focus on your breathing and how you are feeling. And if you're tired, you're tired. What is it that you have to do to pull through? Focus on your breathing. Focus on your thoughts and emotions that come up. And acknowledge in this moment, or after listening to this, what is your next step? And how can you take care of yourself before anybody else? Until next time, I hope you all are well. Be safe. Once again, Joanna from Mindful Counseling.